What was my needle nightmare? Have I started chemo cycle 4 at last? What's with all the noise? Why am I scared of the fridge? What? Come with me through the curtain of blurred colons and find out what's going on in my cancer story. Welcome to the Tumortastic Video Diary number 35. Hi, Skatz here. They know who you are. It's Friday, August the 16th, and this is Video Diary number 35 on Still Alive, where we don't like to die before we die, do we? It's not good for you. Keep your pecker up. Leave my pecker alone. Good news at last. It's on. The chemo doctor said yes. I can get on with cycle 4 of the treatment. I'm so happy they're pumping me full of poison again. Yay. Oh, bugger. So after the last 2 diaries of disappointment and misery, it seems that my diet of groovy keto superfoods like liver and black pudding, plus the multivitamins and omega tablets and the intermittent fasting have boosted my red and white blood cells quite a lot. Even though it was only 6 days since my last blood test, my platelets count has gone from 730 up to 1,000, so I'm way over the 750 minimum. Apparently the twitching arm or shoulder muscle, whatever it is a result of the IV chemo. That's what the doctor said, so that'll go eventually. I reported the lasting neuropathy as well, and the doctor said she's reducing the potency of the IV chemo, so that's very good. There's no change to the regimen of tablets and no need for an extra cycle either. Yay! Yay again. So the next one, number 5, will be the last. And if my bloods are good, and I'm quietly confident with 3 weeks of keeping up with the blood-rich food regimen and resting properly, I can beat the odds and on September the 5th get plugged in for the last time. Will you leave me alone then? I was sleeping really well after the treatment day. Maybe not surprising because I didn't sleep well at Chris's house the night before. It was so hot. None of us slept really well at all. But I woke up feeling really good back up in the slightly cooler and less humid mountains on Thursday, and wrote down everything for this diary. Haven't you got anything better to talk about? Oh, I've got to tell you about the needle nightmare. That's more like it. While the needle at the blood test was the quickest and most efficient yet, a male nurse this time, when I was being plugged in for the IV, the nurse, who was the one I had for cycle 1, couldn't find the vein at all, where everyone else had been finding it easily in the crook of my left elbow, just there, and she didn't even want to try the vein next to it that I could feel myself. She was a tapper and not a feeler like the other nurses, and she couldn't find one along my forearm either, so she put the needle right on the side of my wrist right here, and I had to wriggle it in and out a few times. It was painful, and I ended up with an awful pain in my wrist and up my arm for the rest of the day, and that's still there. I'm expecting a very big bruise. I'll give you a big bruise. Now, you know, I'm getting quite used to the needle parts of this experience, but this was not good at all, and no apparent concern from the nurse. The bedside manners almost non-existent, and actually I didn't see her interact at all with the other staff, which seemed unusual because the rest of them are quite vocal with each other for the whole 3 hours I was in there. Noisy buggers, but good-natured. That's all right. Noisy, noisy. Which reminds me, talking about noise, the bloody phone noises and tapping of feet and tapping on their legs and slapping and kicking, and there's fans. Is everyone ADHD at this hospital? My tiredness probably didn't help. It just made me more aware of it and amplified the panoply of racket. That's a good name for a band, the panoply of racket. It wasn't good for a start that in the waiting area I was forced to sit on the metal chairs, which are horribly uncomfortable. Horribly uncomfortable, you ponce. There is a supposedly air-conditioned waiting room there, but the door was left open so that you could hear the nurses calling people's numbers out in the corridor. So that was a bit of a waste of time, really, having the aircon machine on. It was a little cooler in there, but the room was full of people with hand fans wafting their perfume and sweaty body odours towards me, some kind of side wafting display instead of straight on, which feels a lot more natural to me. Not that I've got one of those fans, and I'm no expert wafter, you know. If they weren't wafting, they were tapping the fans on their legs or tapping their fingers, or bouncing their legs and feet up and down like they were all pumping up air beds or something. So instead I went and sat in the corridor on a 3-chair row a little bit away from everybody else, opposite an open window, which I thought was a good idea, but it didn't really help because the air outside was even hotter. And it was opposite a building site where a guy was clearing away the after building mess using a wheelbarrow, which he would regularly tip crashing down into the skip below, which did sound like the whole building was collapsing. I love it. And then there were the phones. Oh, the bloody phones. Everyone had their ringtones on full volume and seemed to be in no urgent hurry to answer them quickly, sitting looking at the screen first for what seemed like hours, deciding whether to answer it or not, then talking loudly and repetitively as if the person on the end of the phone was deaf. Cinco! Cinco! No, Cinco! And if it wasn't the phone calls or the tap, 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 they didn't have the button thing pressed on, turned off, so that you got all of the key things as well. It was people watching videos or playing games, not at really high volumes all of the time, although some did start off like that before they turned them down eventually. But at the sort of volume where you could hear the most annoying high-pitched noises and repetitive game music. Boop, 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 ping! It was bad enough having one person doing it, but the combination of music, sound effects, distant screaming, all in different musical keys, and the coughing that goes on between it, it's what I imagine they do to people at Guantanamo Bay when the waterboarding just isn't doing the trick. It was the same in all of the waiting areas, you know, at the blood test, the consulting area, the day ward, and even in the place where they give you the chemo, where a lot of people are trying to sleep like I was. Why is no one else aware of this going on? The lack of awareness is bizarre to me. Am I the only one? Or is everyone else just making their own noise to shut out the rest of the racket? Yes, you are the only weirdo. All that kept me going was the knowledge I was on cycle 4 now, so I wouldn't have to do this for much longer. And the sense of relief I got when they called out my name was tangible. I screamed, yes! Over the bleeping and clicking and tapping and fan waving and phone blabbing and discordant mindless music. Funnily enough, it made everyone jump. So they were aware and listening after all. I love a bit of discord. You know, tension is said to be a big part of the huge group of possible causes of cancer. So, as we see a rise in the number of people on the autistic spectrum, is that going to mean a rise in cancers later on? It's difficult to tell with so many possible causes. I am your tension. I've just had a thought. Everyone else got their number called out, but they called my name instead. Andrew. I don't know whether to feel special or not, and what kind of special if I feel special, as in, Sir Andrew, your throne awaits, or, all right, where's the thick Englishman who can't understand Spanish numbers? I think you'll find it is the latter. So anyway, that's all over and I'm back on the loads of tablets now. And I'm anticipating Friday early morning to be, the worst part. The burpings come back again instantly as soon as I started taking the tablets. By the way, I'm recording this on Thursday, so I don't know what Friday early morning's like yet. And so that's going to go through into the weekend. So I'm ready this time with the diarrhea, the tablets, the towel on the bed in case of leakage, the extra fatigue and aching and neuropathy, although maybe with reduced chemo strength that might not be so bad, and of course the THC, timed well to kick in just after the diarrhea has been stopped in its tracks. Bring it on. Oh, I will, my son. You just wait. Hey, I've found out that I've got a fear of the fridge now because of the neuropathy. Everything in there is really cold to the touch, which makes me feel like I'm picking up sharp knives and not by the handle. It's quite disconcerting. So even picking up a packet of cheese, that's nice to say, it's a bit of an ow, 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 fucking ow. Well, and biting into it does the same to my mouth, and swallowing it does the same to my throat. And the first few pieces also sets off pain in both jaws. It's like they're going to lock into place. Weirdness. Lock, jaw and pain. Now, if you remember, it was an early treatment this week because of the Thursday bank holiday, and the Malaga lot are preparing for their huge feria. So they're getting everything out of the way, I think. If the blood test hadn't been good this time, there might have been a much longer wait for the next test, or certainly a nightmare drive to get through the traffic that starts this weekend. Actually starts this Thursday, because it's a bridge holiday on Friday. Lots of businesses don't take just the bank holiday off, they take the Friday off too. That's called a bridge day, so it makes it really a 4-day weekend holiday. So traffic is expected to be a nightmare, because Spanish families, they're going to be joining the already crowded tourist areas. Anyway, I've beaten that. So like I said, I'm making this video on Thursday because of the early treatment, so I can just crash on Friday and have a smooth ride through the nasty days. I'll report on that next week. You lazy druggy bastard. Yeah! On that note, that's all for this week. Next week, I'll see you again. How exciting. Thank you so much for continuing to follow my story and sharing your own messages and sending messages of support. And tune in next Friday for another thrilling episode of... What's it called, Freddie? I'm not saying it. But everyone else is. Keep your fingers and your toes crossed, you lovely people. And as always, raise your drinking receptacle with me. The toast is... still alive. And let's all do the still alive dance.